A fair divorce settlement without ever seeing a lawyer? Find out why this attorney says it's the best way to go.
Good afternoon, Divorce Helpline.
Legal aid by the minute from Divorce Helpline.
My ex-husband met another woman and
When
left.
Laura's husband left her,
me.
this book helped guarantee that her daughter was properly cared for in the divorce settlement. What's the right way to break the news of divorce to your kids? The author of Good Intentions tells us how. And Bruce Williams, what you need to know about credit. That's today on Meeting the Challenge.
Knowledge TV Retro, brought to you by Jones International University, the first fully online accredited university. Change your life for the better on your schedule. 8-week classes begin next month. Visit jiu.edu to find out more.
Divorce. It's a painful and difficult subject. In a perfect world, it would never happen. In reality, it's the way nearly 1.2 million marriages end every year in the United States. Hello, everyone. I'm Teresa Richardson, and welcome to Meeting the Challenge. Anyone who's been through divorce can tell you marriage isn't the only thing it destroys. It can also pulverize the spirits of both spouses, deplete family finances, and attack the self-esteem and security of children. How can we minimize the devastation of divorce? For more than 25 years, attorney Ed Sherman has witnessed the destructive effects of divorce. He says much of the problem is created by our legal system.
The system in which attorneys work is a conflict system. It's adversarial by nature. So the attorney's tools, the only tools attorney can use are adversarial conflict tools. If you hire a carpenter, he's going to build you something, even, no matter what the problem is. He's a carpenter. If you hire an attorney, he's going to use conflict, adversarial legal system and get you into a fight.
What Ed Sherman has learned is that there's more to the process than lawyers dividing assets.
There's an emotional divorce and there's a legal divorce. The law is primarily is only concerned with your property and your parenting and support, and to the extent you need it, the law is concerned with keeping the peace. So if you can resolve those issues, you're done with the legal divorce. But the emotional divorce is something else entirely that the law has nothing whatever to do with. It actually probably gets in the way of processing the emotional divorce.
The problem, Ed says, is that the decision to divorce is usually made by one spouse. When spouse one breaks the news to spouse two, it often comes as a shock. Spouse two's reaction is usually one of defensiveness, denial, and fear. Spouse two then quickly runs to see an attorney, which for most people, Ed explains, is the worst possible thing that can happen.
Well, if one side goes to an attorney, the chances are that all hell will break loose because the attorney of necessity will take the case into a conflict-oriented system and everything gets chewed up. And here's what all lawyers do. They take the petition and the summons and they send it with a letter from the law firm to the other side, and it's served on them, either personally or in the mail, and it says, warning, notice, you have been served with a legal document. If you do not respond within 30 days, a judgment may be taken against you. And it's very scary language, and getting a cold letter from a lawyer is very disturbing. So you need, this is the one thing that will drive your spouse through fear and through not knowing what else to do into the hands of a lawyer, and your case will go into a legal conflict.
But there is an alternative. It's called a do-it-yourself divorce, and when we say Ed Sherman wrote the book on it, we mean it literally.
You want to avoid having an attorney do the job for you. You want to take responsibility, make some decisions, and solve problems yourself. It's your life, you know. You want to lead it. Doing your own divorce means you get information, you make the decisions yourself, and you resolve the issues between you and your spouse, if there are any. What it really means is you do not retain an attorney to take your case. That's what it means.
Divorce is unfortunate for many reasons, but it may not have to be costly, and it doesn't have to become a battlefield legally or personally.
The reasons people don't make agreements are emotional. So the steps you take are addressed to the emotional things that are between people, like hurt, fear, anger. Mostly fear. There's a lot of fear, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of insecurity. If either party in a marriage wants out, you can't stop them. You have to let them out. You have to let them have a divorce. There's no legal way of stopping them. So all you're really talking about now in terms of legal things is, will you get a fair division of property? Will you get a reasonable parenting plan to how are you going to take care of the children between you when you're living separately? And what about support? If you know that you're getting a fair outcome, and if you know the divorce is going to go through no matter what you do, and if you know that all of the answers have been already worked out in thousands of cases and in millions of codes of lines of law, then there's really no, there's nothing to fight about. Nothing will be gained in a fight. It's just an emotional outburst in a tantrum.
Ed says, however, that there are a few situations in which one does need to use an attorney.
If you have an emergency, you need an attorney. You need an attorney or some kind of help. If you have spouse abuse, child abuse, if your mate is threatening to do harm or is threatening to take away the bank account or property, if there's some immediate urgent need, you can use an attorney very well to get a restraining order or to take some kind of legal action to help you.
The bottom line, if divorce is inevitable and you're not in an emergency situation, get through it with the least amount of pain and for the lowest cost possible, by keeping a tight rein on your emotions, by working with your spouse to come to terms over issues like money, property, bills, support, and children, and by making good choices on the amount and kind of legal involvement you need. One way to do that? A divorce helpline. More on that when we return. In the state of California, some 160,000 marriages a year end in divorce, and nearly 60% are done without lawyers. However, when Ed Sherman first published his book, How to Do Your Own Divorce in California, in 1971, less than 1% of divorces in California were done without an attorney. The book was part of a revolution in the way lawyers and the public looked at the end of a marriage. Since 1990, Sherman and two law partners have been offering another innovation for people who want to complete a divorce on their own.
Good afternoon, Divorce Helpline.
Most divorce lawyers will only help you if you retain them to represent you throughout the entire process. That's expensive. And Lober, on the other hand, is a partner in the Divorce Helpline, a telephone service that allows clients to hire an attorney for advice by the minute, for as few or as many minutes as they need.
Let's say it's me, and I'm thinking about getting a divorce, and I'm saying I really don't want to be married to this person any longer. And I say to him, honey, I've really decided, we've had all these arguments, I've really decided I really want to go through with this, I want to get a divorce. And he is so threatened by that, and correctly so, because every story that he's heard and everything, he's so threatened that he goes out and hires an attorney. And the attorney makes me into a bad guy in the discussion that the attorney has. So, and then they serve papers on me. And then I have to hire an attorney. And then the two attorneys are discussing us and discussing our lives, and they don't know about our lives. It's we who should be discussing our lives. And we should use them for advice. Like, I don't want to make a tax error. I want to understand the capital gain, or I want to understand how to transfer assets, or I want to understand my retirement funds and what's in them. I want to support my children. We need advice, financial advice for this, and that advice is very valuable. What's wrong is the adversary part of it. Why should everyone be made an enemy, and then the winners are the attorneys? I think that the way that ordinary attorneys treat families borders on a kind of child abuse, because the child is terrified and afraid, and their parents are yelling, and they've heard everything, and they know everything. They know everything that's going on in our house. They really know. And the parents should be working to comfort the child. They should be working intelligently on the financial settlement. It's really like we're really asking them, can you be an adult and do this? It's the biggest crisis that your family is ever going to have. Can you really put aside all the doubts and the fears and the anger that you have, and just, we will help you, take care of business in an intelligent way, save your money for yourself, save your money for your children. Because whose money are they spending? They're spending the family's money on this.
Anne believes it's crucial to avoid a situation which will drive either of you to a lawyer. For that reason, she says, one of the most important things you can do in a divorce situation is to communicate with your spouse.
When the first person calls us, we really help the person to de-escalate the situation. We try to help them to understand that their spouse is going through something that they have already been through, and that there needs to be some time given and some respect given to the grieving process that spouse number 2 is going to be experiencing starting now.
But what's the right way to break the news to a spouse that you were planning to end your marriage and that you're going to file for divorce?
I think that when a person tells their spouse, very often they're in the heat of the very worst thing. So I think that the way they tell them should be 2 different ways. One is they should tell them, and the other is that they should write a letter, because the letter will be read many, many times, and we have a chance to think about what we're writing.
We asked Ann what she thought was the right thing to say at a time like this.
Even though I know how awful you feel, and I'm really sorry, but I've really decided that I really want to do this, I still want to save $10, $20, or $30,000. I don't want to do an adversary case. I still think we can work out things for the benefit of us and the children. The children get all the money, the savings. If there are children, and about half of the families that do work with us that have children, the children get the money. Or the lawyer's children get the money. That's the question. Whose children get the money?
With all of this advice about divorce, we wondered what kind of advice a divorce attorney might have to offer about marriage.
Sometimes there are going to be really hard things to deal with, and people should hang in there and stick with each other and solve the problems together. Don't get divorced. Work things out together.
Coming up next, a woman who set aside her anger at her husband and let her commitment to her daughter's well-being guide her through the divorce process. But first, ponder this: fact or fiction? Nearly half of all marriages end in divorce. The answer when we return. Welcome back. Fact or fiction? Nearly half of all marriages end in divorce. That is fiction. Here's how the rumor got started. One year, the Census Bureau reported that there were 2.4 million new marriages each year and 1.2 million new divorces. Half, right? Not if you take the 54 million existing marriages into consideration. According to pollster Lewis Harris, only 1 of 8 marriages end in divorce, with 2% of existing marriages being dissolved each year.
We have well, she's now 4, but she was a 2-year-old at the time, and most important to me was that she came out of the divorce situation unscathed.
Only 3 short weeks after Laura's husband announced that he'd met someone new and he was leaving her and their daughter, they were filing for divorce.
My ex-husband met another woman and made the decision that he wanted to leave the marriage. And it was all within a 3-week period from the time that he told me that he had met her and we filed for divorce. And it was very fast. It was very shocking. And it was a very emotionally wrought time.
For Laura, this was a time to put aside how she felt about her husband and how she felt about what was happening and concentrate on what would be best for her daughter.
In Santa Cruz County, you have to take a class called Children and Divorce before you can get divorced. And I thought after going to the class that it would be beneficial to go to a child custody mediator to set up our parenting agreement. So we met with a woman who specializes, she's a marriage, family, child counselor who specializes in custody issues, and she was able to guide us down a path of what you want to look at and how you want to structure it. And so it wasn't about the finances of it, but the time, how we would split the time. And my ex-husband is an alcoholic, so there was some provisions made in the plan that he wouldn't drink in her presence, and so there was certain issues that I had concern about that were addressed in the parenting agreement, which was part of the marriage settlement agreement then. Whenever anything was thought about my daughter, it wasn't what was best for me or what was best for my ex-husband, but what was best for her. And as much as I hated him so much, or quote unquote, for taking her away from me, it's important that she has her father, because no matter what, he's her father. And as long as he's not harming her, then she should be spending time with him.
Laura took a bad situation and made the best of it. How did she do it?
Well, my parents got divorced, and it was one of those nasty divorces. And I don't know that I ever made a conscious decision, okay, this is how my divorce is going to proceed. But I think that I tend to be a more positive person, and I definitely have my moments, but after I had calmed down, what good is that going to accomplish? It's not going to accomplish anything. And I think very early on, I forgave him. I never approved of what he did, but I forgave him for his infidelity and for, you know, everything that happened, and decided that I could wallow in this, and I could be angry, and I could really let this affect my life, or I could just deal with it in a very matter-of-fact way, which is, if you take the emotion out of it, then that's what it is, and get on with my life.
We asked Laura if she had any advice for others in a similar situation.
A lot of friends that I have that are divorced, a lot of the women, I hear their stories about, well, he's only paying this amount in child support, and he's not, you know, I ended up with all the bills, and he got the house, and he's got, and I don't know how that can happen, and I think part of it is that what I think I see with a lot of women is they feel guilty about something, and therefore they tend to give in. So I guess I would say not to give in. And you can do that without being angry and mean and critical, but just to stay strong.
When we return, advice on how to break the news of a divorce to your children. Welcome back to Meeting the Challenge. Perhaps the hardest part of divorce is telling the children. We're now joined by Duke Robinson, who is pastor of Montclair Presbyterian Church in Oakland, California for 28 years and is the author of a new book called Good Intentions. Thanks for being with us, Duke.
My pleasure.
First of all, when is it a good time to tell the children about divorce?
Timing can make all the difference in the world. You want to not come on too quickly to the children. You want to make sure that you've actually settled the issue between you, the two parents, and yet you don't want to wait too long after you've definitely decided on a divorce. You don't want the children either feeling that they have something to do with maybe holding you back from going through with a divorce, so you want it settled, and you don't want to wait too long because you don't want an uncle or a cousin telling the children.
Is there a right way to tell your children about divorce?
Well, there are ways that have proven to be helpful. One, you want to do it together if at all possible. You want to sit down at an appropriate time. You want to hold the children. Maybe it's, if it's a small child or there is a small child sitting on your lap, if not holding a hand, an arm around the child. One of the important things is to make sure the child feels affirmed, feels safe, feels secure. You prepare for this. You talk about it beforehand, the couple does. And you decide who will do the speaking and who will say what. You decide to be brief, direct, specific without going into too much detail. You tell them things that are going to reassure them that they're not going to be left alone. Parents may need to confess their mistakes, the fact that they have made a mistake, and that they're sorry for that. They're sorry for what it's going to cause the children. See, the children we're concerned about their emotional welfare. That's what they need at this point. They need attention to that. The parents need to be sensitive to it. They need to talk about things that are appropriate for the children.
What about the notion of protecting the children? That's not necessarily a good thing.
No, actually, what it amounts to is most parents are afraid that they're going to hurt their children further, and so they tend to overprotect them. The issue is not protection, except to protect them from the idea that maybe they're going to be abandoned. You want to make sure that they know that you're going to be there for them. But you don't want to protect them from the grief, from the pain. What you want to do is support them through the pain. You want to be there for them and with them. You want to be able to empathize with them, to be able to say, we know this is going to be upsetting to you, and we wish that weren't the case. But we love you and we care about you and we want the best for you.
And if the children do become upset and start to act up, what can you do?
Well, you can allow them to act up. You can embrace them. They're going to be upset, and that's normal. They have something to be upset about. Children under the age of 7 are probably going to be able to slough it off, live in their own fantasy world. But children older than that, they need some reassurance. They need empathy. This is hard for you. We understand that. we care about you. That reassurance and identifying with their difficulty is very, very important.
Duke, thank you for being with us. It's never an easy situation for anyone. Let's switch gears right now and check in with Bruce Williams, who has information on credit that we all can use.
Credit. There are so many people in this country who pride themselves in saying, I never buy anything on credit. Are they smart? Not really. Why? Because credit is what makes this country go round. Let's face it, without credit, there is not enough money to fuel the economy. Others will say, well, I got in trouble and I cut up my credit cards. Why is that necessary? If you burned yourself, would you get rid of all the matches? If you cut yourself with a knife, would you get rid of all your knives? Of course not. The knife, the match, and the credit card, not the guilty party, you are. Like any tool, credit can be abused. And once you've abused it, it's very difficult to get back. But there is life after bankruptcy. There is life after poor credit. As an example, one of the things you might want to consider if you really bruised your credit is a collateralized credit card. Simply put, you deposit some money in a bank account, and your credit line on that Visa or MasterCard is limited to the amount of money that you've deposited. If you fail to make a payment, trust me, they'll take the money right out of your account and make the payment for you and then cancel your card. Department stores can afford to be more generous with their credit. Why? Because they make their money not only on the credit, but they make the money on the product that they're selling you. They will be a little more generous. You rebuild your credit very slowly. Matter of fact, I've written a book on the subject called Credit Smart. You might enjoy it. It's not the kind of thing you cuddle up around a fire, but on the other hand, there's information that can be very, very useful. Credit is a useful tool, but like all tools, improperly used, it can be dangerous. I'm Bruce Williams.
If divorce is inevitable for you, we hope you've seen a few things here today that can help minimize the cost and the pain for you, for your spouse, and for your children. I'm Teresa Richardson. We'll see you next time.
Knowledge TV Retro, brought to you by Jones International University, the first fully online accredited university. Change your life for the better on your schedule. 8-week classes begin next month. Visit jiu.edu to find out more.